So, summertime. Are you teaching in the summer?
I am not.
Oh, okay, cool. So, you get a break?
No, I was working on the blockchain project.
Oh, okay.
So working on a white paper,
Right,
working on the
right.
project plan.
Okay.
I'm under an NDA, so I can't really say too much, but that's what I spent my time for. I think if the 3 months that I have, because I end in May and then start up again in
School rest.
really the end of August, I try and see what can I do.
Right,
So
right.
it's a gamble / investment of my time. How can I grow myself? Really the best time is the summer. So this summer, I use blockchain.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, so I'm sure that means you're staying busy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there is so much to do. The space is so broad. And then I'm looking at it from different perspectives. So the mining perspective, the investing perspective, the development perspective, the business opportunity perspective.
Right.
I think contracting is another opportunity. So I tried to take all those pathways and see just basically how far I could go given the time that I have.
Right, right. Okay. So, I mean, I guess we could also maybe throw that in a little bit later in the conversation because I think we talked about this earlier, but when we talk about blockchain technology and the different projects, at the end of the day, you want to make money off of whatever it is you're creating.
Yes. And I think the vision that I have is there are global opportunities.
Right, right.
So thinking not just in my area, I'm thinking how can I change the world? And I think that's every new technology that comes out, you want to be early enough that you can make the biggest difference. And I think in this space, there's still opportunities.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
I think locally there's some, regionally there's some, I think globally there's some as well. I guess my biggest fault right now is sort of chasing each rabbit instead of going down one particular rabbit hole.
Yeah, and I guess that's also the nature of it because there's so many new things coming up, you know, in terms of use cases and different ways to use blockchain and different ways to make money. So, but all right, so it's 7:05, and even though we're a little late, I think we should start, and then as people come on, we'll be able to see them. So, welcome to this episode of Bitcoin for Introverts. Today we're talking about the state of blockchain, and we are at Bowie University?
Bowie State University.
Bowie State University, thank you. Because some people just say Bowie, some people say Bowie State. Okay, so so Bowie State University with Professor Andrew Mangle. We'll have him introduce himself. But we wanted to say thank you for joining us this evening. Samson Williams is not with us this evening. He is still in Dubai, living it up. But he'll be back in the next episode. All right, so Professor Mangle, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you already talked about a little bit about what you're working on, but anything you want to share about your background or anything that...
I guess people want to ask, how did I get to where I am today?
Right.
And I think my background from an undergraduate perspective was computer science, information systems, application development, realizing that WordPress was going to take over my job on the server side, then moving quickly to cybersecurity. And I think blockchain is a mixture of application development and cybersecurity. So the concepts we teach in cybersecurity are the ones we're teaching or really showcasing. So public key encryption, using encryption, using ciphers, hashing, all these concepts we introduced in cybersecurity, but now we want to develop this Web 3.0 we're talking about with blockchain. So it was positioned well that I would be able to capitalize on my background to move forward. At Bowie State University, I teach primarily cybersecurity courses and blockchain courses. One of my niches I try and do is in each course incorporate blockchain into the courses. So what does that mean? That means if you're doing project management, you're going to be project managing a blockchain solution.
Okay.
If you're doing IS auditing, you're going to consider the risks of what happens if we basically use blockchain into our current systems.
And what's IS auditing for our audience?
Information systems auditing. Okay. So looking at the processes, I feel one of the key advantages of a distributed ledger is you have some way to audit. So you know when the transactions occurred. There's a digital paper trail per se throughout the whole process. So I'm trying to do, in each course, I'm trying to incorporate blockchain into it. even if it's a little bit of a stretch.
Right.
For our primary research course, which of course is INS 890, which is basically a research introduction to research, we had students look at use cases for blockchain in different areas. So the non-traditional fintech space, we're saying where could we apply them? Some of the best examples, we're using it for land-based records, keeping track of supply chain. So supply chain is really the big one,
Right.
because you can see along each step of the process or the supply chain where individuals could certify that those actually occurred. So we used it for, what is it called? Like there was a cane syrup based liquor.
Okay.
It-
You want to make sure that whatever's in that, I guess that liquor is pure and I guess organic or wherever it came
Yes.
from. It is, you can track where it came from, things of that nature. Okay.
And I think supply chain was the easiest one for students to see.
Right.
Oh, this is where it was. This was the amount. So be it by weight or be it by quality, they could actually pinpoint those. And a lot of the use cases from a academic perspective are already out there.
Right. Okay.
So they're showing proof of concept. There's been some publications that talk about supply chain management. So the two big, I should have said you can't use anything in the financial space because I said Bitcoin already really took that use case and has been doing it for a while.
Right.
But how do we extend that? Land-based records were another where they want to say how do you transfer rights between individuals. There was a lot of good information out there, but that's what I want as a professor. I want students to get interested and basically be caught up in the hype, the opportunity. And that's sort of the best thing that happened to me in the fall and lead up into January was the spike in the altcoins and the Bitcoin prices,
right.
because there was just a lot of positive momentum. And that's what brings students in is the excitement of other people.
Yeah, that's
their
true.
friends were talking about it. I was actually in an outlet mall past weekend, and someone just asked me where I worked and what I did, and they asked me what should I do from an investing standpoint for the altcoins. I said I'm not in that area.
Right.
I'm in sort of the application development, looking for specific use cases. So if there is an opportunity for distributed ledger technology to really be a competitive advantage or a distinct advantage over existing technologies, that's what I really want to seize upon.
Right. I mean, speaking of the hype, as you know, we were in Dubai and Mauritius last week and the week before. And when we think, at least when I think of the hype, I think for a time it was here in the U.S. and certain parts of Europe, etc. But I think it's like spreading, right? So
Yes.
now it's touching different parts of Africa, South Africa. Dubai wants to be paperless by 2020. They have their own blockchain initiatives. So I think one good thing about the hype is that even though there's some, misconceptions about the hype, and there are some misrepresentations that kind of go along with the hype, but it also helps, I guess, engage people. And so people want to know, well, what's this about, and how can this help us, and how can this, actually be beneficial to people in our country or people, in our community. So, but like I was saying, so we were in Mauritius last week. Yes, was it last week? Yes. And they had their, I don't know if it was their initial blockchain conference, but I know that group, it was their first time doing a blockchain conference. And the audience was just full of business people. The president of Mauritius was there.
Whoa.
He even gave a keynote acknowledging that he understands that, the world is changing essentially, and that fintech and AI and things of that nature and Internet of Things are the next big thing. And so they want to take advantage of that. They are a small country. I think the population is 1.3 million. But even though they're small, as far in terms of their GDP per capita and their ability to, have agreements with other countries that are closer, like on Eastern Africa and then South Africa and other countries, Europe and all that, they found a way to kind of insert themselves in the ecosystem. So that would be a place for you to go. Let's say you wanted to start a business, a blockchain-based business, that might be a place to consider. You could add that to the list of, blockchain-friendly jurisdictions. We also were in Dubai, and Dubai is another hot spot, if you will. And one of the things they've been working on, and it was announced last year, either end of last year or earlier this year, was that they wanted to have a smart Dubai, I guess, by 2020, which includes becoming paperless and adopting different technology initiatives to just make the city smarter, right? And what's cool about that is that, I don't know if you've ever been to Dubai, but Dubai is like super, super hot one. But the other thing is that a lot of things are just fancy in Dubai. I don't know, like the hotels, a 3-star hotel is like covered in marble. So it's weird that, that now they're like, oh, well, I guess maybe we'll go towards being more of a tech hub as opposed to, a place that's, I guess, known for being just a fancier place to visit and be, and not necessarily a business hub, but a place to do some level of business, and especially in construction and all that. But I think they're expanding to adopt fintech and all those things. So I find that even though these are countries that are not necessarily the ones that you hear a lot about in terms of blockchain and cryptos and things like that, I think they've definitely taken some steps to put themselves on the map, and I think the hype helped that.
Yes.
For sure. Do you know if there are, I know you were talking about some of the things that you present to your students. Do you ever talk about the different areas or the different countries that might be, I guess, blockchain friendly in terms of jurisdiction, or do you kind of keep it just about the tech and just about the I guess the cybersecurity aspects of blockchain?
When I talk about blockchain, I try and find a use case that works for them.
Okay.
And since we're an HBCU, we have a lot of students that look about their specific community. So we have
Right.
international students, we have local students, and that sort of brings something different to our classes, is they look at problems, especially international students, that matter to them. So one of the best ones that a student wanted to work towards was land records.
Okay.
So they had trouble with, if I transfer you land, there's a reconciliation process. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to. I know you know the reconciliation process. Basically, they basically confirms that transaction of the land from you to me and me to you. A transfer occurred.
Right.
In some situations, how does that occur if it's not done electronically? Then how do we move that to a centralized ledger? But they were looking at problems through an international perspective.
Okay. Right.
I think that's the way I try and frame it, is what are the problems that matter to you?
Right.
Or are the problems applicable? And I try and extend them beyond just the college campus. Like parking, well, that's not a major universal issue.
Right.
And then I want them to think bigger globally, like what are the problems that are affecting the world?
The world, right.
And then what I try to say is, what are the distinct advantages of blockchain, and that's trust and immutability? What particular situations will that be beneficial for?
I mean, in terms of real estate transactions, I could definitely see how it has, international, how that could be an international issue. Like, my family's from Haiti, so I mean, people just kind of know that family has been in that house for like 30 years.
Yeah.
So if you want, or probably longer than that. So if you wanted to sell it, I can't even tell you like what that process would be. I know here in the States, like you said, there is this reconciliation process that takes a lot of paperwork and takes a lot of time and money, right?
Yes.
So, you essentially pay a title company to confirm something that's already public record.
Yes.
But there's a obviously, title companies and businesses have a monopoly on that, that you have to go through a title company to even get a lender to agree to lend you money to buy your house. So it's this process where they kind of all work together.
In the United States, we have the same problem in Hawaii, where you have native lands. I mean, not throwing Mark Zuckerberg under the bus, but that was one of the issues of his land. Was it really purchasable, or was it owned by the native Hawaiians?
Oh, I didn't hear about that. Okay.
Yeah.
So whatever came out of that? I mean,
I mean, there's still lawsuits going on.
Okay.
So they'll figure it out, but I mean, they're trying to force into a system. But again, when you don't really know who owns it,
right?
And it's sort of like it was implied it was owned by someone else. And then where do you mark lines? Where property? I mean, we take for granted in the United States how sort of things have progressed in a distinct way, but they're not universal.
Right.
And even now, you're a lawyer, like people challenge those defined standards and protocols
Right, because it doesn't always have to make sense, right? I mean, especially, because certain things have been done for so long, it's just how it's done. I
Yes.
mean, I know those words can be deadly in certain
Yes.
in
Yes.
certain industries or in certain respects, but because they've always been done this way, like the title company issue, like there's no way to get around it other than to create something totally
Yes.
different, totally new that kind of rips the rug up from under, the old way, the conventional way.
And you provided two examples of two countries you listed. They don't have to play by the rules that were set by somebody else.
Right.
So you give one a small country where a president's behind an initiative, smaller number of people where they are open to change, looking for innovation. Another country like Dubai that is really, I think, pushing the forefront. Well, they push the forefront of engineering.
Right.
They have the flexibility. They said they've been open for foreign investment. There's a lot going on there. So I think there's great opportunity where there is a positive and welcoming environment. And I think, I don't want to say the hype was bad. The hype was great.
Yes.
And we need diverse ideas, diverse opinions, diverse perspectives to really move the field forward. And in particular, we need people to develop things. So
Yes.
I think we need to the hype needs to translate into action. And that's one thing I think in the United States, what I saw is excitement didn't translate as much as I wanted to into products.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I was challenging students. I was like, yeah, this is great, but they've provided you a platform. They've given you everything. They tell you what it could be used for. They're just looking for developers.
Right. And I'm with you. I think at some point we have to stop, I guess talking about use cases and then actually show some utility, right? Show that whatever this is that you're creating is something that can be used. And I mean, granted, all these are all great ideas and they have to start somewhere.
Yes.
But to your point, at some point, these use cases won't carry us too much further. I mean, and you can even see in the investment world, there was a time where you could come up with an idea and you would, be able to raise millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars. But I think that has changed a little bit, especially because of the regulatory landscape.
Yes.
And so you have to build something. And so it's kind of going back towards conventional ways of raising money in terms of, if you were just a regular business, take off the title of blockchain and crypto and all that, and you wanted to raise money from an investor, they would want to see something. Your white paper would not be sufficient. You would have to actually show an MVP, a minimal viable product, some proof of concept, something to be able to, to convince them that, them investing their whatever amount of money that you're seeking will be used in a way that you say it'll be used, and it'll be worth it to them in the end, hopefully.
This is where I reach out to the introverts.
Right.
To the
right.
people working on their own at home to start building.
Right.
There are enough people who can supply the enthusiasm and hype behind it.
Agreed.
And I think that's where I was looking for students. I said there's just opportunities here. You're really starting on a level playing field. So the person who has the most experience, let's use Ethereum. What do they have? 3 years of experience?
Right.
And it's changed a little bit, but solidity, there's just opportunities to develop. And I think now the market has shifted, like you said, the ICO was a hope and a dream. Now it's sort of, I need it actually working, and I need 1 million people using it.
Right. That's the other thing, right?
And I think that's sort of the VC world, like they always want more. Like we just want, venture capital, we always want more. So working with a company, they're like, well, every time I talk to them, the people who have the money, they want more. And I'm like, then you just keep on developing more, you keep on improving. But I think there's even opportunities, if you think globally, that's fantastic, but even small problems. Like there's just opportunity everywhere to apply the concepts of trust and mutability in a decentralized environment to many different problems.
Right.
And I think what scares me as a developer is if we as individuals don't start developing those problems, larger conglomerates will come in and take those
Right.
opportunities.
And you see they've already started, right? They've
Yes.
already put their hand in the pot. Yeah.
And why I want people to get in there and throw their energy into it is, I don't want people to think, oh, X company or Y company is the only people who can develop these types of solutions. And I know they have more people who can promote and more people who can market, but it's the individuals that can really make a difference. And that's what I think where the market needs to shift is the people producing, you've already mentioned it, producing the products, showing things off. And I just think there's a lot of opportunity here. So even me, I'm sort of trying to get out of the phase of talking and producing.
Right.
but it's a full business.
It is a business.
You have to, if you build something, people aren't, in the Field of Dreams analogy, if you build it, people will come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's sort of a missing step.
Yeah, right.
If you build it, tell everyone how great it is.
Right.
And then they will come. But that's what I'm looking to do myself, and I encourage other people to do it too.
I agree. I mean, and speaking of decentralized, I know we were talking about this earlier off camera, but oftentimes when we think about decentralization, we only think about the actual product being decentralized, deployment of the product being decentralized, but often a lot of the teams are decentralized too,
Yes.
right? People are all over the world. Like I was, as I mentioned earlier, we were in Dubai and Mauritius earlier this week, and most people, a lot of the people who were there, they were from all over, and they had some people in India, they had some people in Singapore, they had some people in Africa, they had some people in Europe, they had some people in the US. And so, but they all had their position or their function. They knew what they were supposed to be doing. And I think when we think about decentralization, we have to also consider that oftentimes the help you need may be on the other side of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that it's okay to tap into that.
We're working with, I'm not trying to push IGOs here,
Okay, that's
but I'm working with one, and you realize you're talking with their Discord, their Telegram,
Mm-hmm.
you're dealing with a global group working towards a single vision or mission. And it's interesting that I think there has to be a professional element into it, that you have to have the team organization. I don't know if it's Discord is the option. I just know it's sort of like people chatting back and forth. I'm having problems. Can I do this? Can I do that?
right.
It's so different than what I see in a traditional higher education environment where it's just the person next to you,
Mm-hmm.
where you're working together on a problem. But that again ties back to decentralization. I have no idea where they are, and nor do I care to know where they are.
You're right.
But what was interesting is I feel like I'm talking to someone from the other end of the world, and he makes a comment like, "Well, I'm in Maryland right now."
Okay.
My point is, it doesn't matter where they are.
Right, it doesn't, and I guess because the only issue with that is flirting with time zones, etc. But even with that, I think that's what's beautiful about the technology, the fact that people from all over can kind of come together and work on this. I don't think you see that in other types of booms, if you will. Granted, I do remember maybe in the Linux bounty program, people were probably all over trying to take out kinks, but that's kind of how blockchain works now, right?
Yes.
I mean, you can have your CEO in Belgium and your CTO in Ukraine or Singapore, and that works. So I think if you're trying to build a blockchain-based business, you have to consider that your business may have to be global. Even if maybe the reach of your product isn't global, but your team might be global, and that's okay. And I think we should keep in mind some of the countries that we don't hear that much about, because I think oftentimes the popular ones kind of crowd out or drown out some of these smaller countries that could be just as efficient in getting you what you need, in terms of building your business, your project, etc. But earlier you had a question about decentralization, and I guess the way that we think about having certain parts of your business in certain countries or certain locations.
Well,
I might be saying that wrong.
I was challenging a single location as we think about what could be a hub.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's always in a project manager or a project coordinator, like someone needs to manage it and there needs to be an infrastructure to support it.
Right.
But I was arguing that there shouldn't be just one specific location that is doing blockchain or distributed ledger. It should be multiple locations, which you've alluded to.
Right.
But I think there can always be one that facilitates or brings people together. So if there's a single conference, I know the Consensus is a big one in New York.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's also within this space, there's multiple niches. So Consensus, I think, is more like fintech, and I think there's other opportunities for application development. One of the things that I thought of while coming here, I was like, what about the competitions? Like, how do we get people to compete? So like the Linux bounty program for particular problems, like to bring people together. Step back one more time, like now's the time.
Okay.
Because if you don't want to, like, you can do things on your own time and in your own way.
Right.
So when I communicate through these channels, I'm like, oh, I can phrase it how I want to. I have time to say it. I can then block people I don't want to talk to. And, this one group, it has particular subsections, and I'm like, oh, I could really talk in that group, but I don't feel comfortable talking in another group. So it works out well where I work to my level of comfort. I know I should probably get out of that, but I feel that if you're easing your way in these specific groups, they're very supportive.
Right. And I agree. I think they're supportive because I think people realize the reach that blockchain has, and the fact that people are, because there's this trustless, or even though I feel like that's a misnomer, but there's this trustless, I'll put it in quotes, attribute to having a blockchain-based solution. It kind of just affords people the opportunity to work with whomever, because even if they don't know you personally, I think because they trust the technology, then it makes it easier to work with you regardless of where you are.
Yeah, and I also should say that they're usually done in a more, almost a private or secluded space. What I find is they sort of form their own groups off of a traditional, like Reddit is, I know, a big one, or Bitcoin Talk. They get into the group of people who are supportive of the project, very positive about it. So they're with people who are just like pushing other people along. Like, keep on going. Like, this is great.
Yeah.
Go here, go there. You're doing an awesome job. But just a supportive environment. And I think it's sort of overwhelming. I know it's overwhelming for my students. How can I get into this group? And I think you just join.
Yeah.
And you just post a question. They'll answer the question.
Right.
And one group the past group, like I talked to the founder, like the founder responded back to a question, and their lead tech support. And it's just difficult for me to imagine if I went to a major company and the president was answering my tech questions, or the CTO was answering my tech questions, or they were open to discussion. And that's the new environment that it just blows my mind.
Yeah, I don't think you would see that very often. Yeah, I agree. And I guess that's the whole point of building community, the community around, even if they're not necessarily interested in the type of project or the type of industry you're trying to create your solution for. I think just generally speaking, people just love the idea of supporting someone who wants to create a blockchain solution. Like that's definitely carried, I think, people a long way. But is there anything else you wanted to leave with our audience?
Oh, I have a lot of good ideas, but I think it's too soon to share.
Okay.
So stay tuned. Isn't that what I'm gonna say?
We've heard this before, right?
There's one more thing, and then the feed cuts off. That hopefully will turn out into great. Like, I'm a glass blower here, like object. Maybe it'll just be a ball or whatever they make. But I think there's a lot of things coming down the pike that could turn out to be awesome things. And there's always something new.
Right.
And the enthusiasm, the hype, it's just good to be around a positive environment.
Right.
Where people are pushing other people along. I feel the negativity is just so low. That everyone has got great hopes. And I think this will, again, spill over to other things. And I think it just opens people's minds. So I tell people, just get involved in this space, because it'll get you thinking about other things.
Right. I mean, and I know you said you teach a couple classes and you incorporate blockchain. Is there a blockchain program, or is there like maybe an entrepreneurship program that helps people who are interested in blockchain here at Bowie State that people could tap into? Could they take a course for no credit, or does it have to be part of a credit program?
So
I asked you like 4 questions in a row, but
I'll give you a few. So the Maryland Center, which is a training arm of Bowie State University, it's sort of our non-credit that does government contract and basically does your auditing style courses. We'll do a blockchain foundations course.
Okay.
I know in computer science and computer technology they also do one. We do a research course on it. We have an entrepreneurship academy. So for students that are entrepreneurial focused, that someone's working on a way to secure digital wallets. Everyone's looking for that.
Yeah.
Everyone doesn't want their money stolen.
Right, of course.
Please give me a solution. But then we also have our summer undergraduate research experience. So students coming in, we just got a grant from NSF to do blockchain related research for security, basically how secure are the systems, how secure is this trustless we talk about. But I think there's a lot of different things, and it's finding out where people want to be in the blockchain space. I like to think Bowie has something for everyone.
Okay.
But I try and engage students and try and build a cohort. So we do events, we've done lecture series, we're doing this here.
Right. And we'll have to come back to find out what you're working on and how it'll be, I guess, flourishing later.
Now I'm on the hook.
Yes.
It will be dealing with the higher education space. I'll give
All
my
right.
little teaser here. The incentive I have for a student, the only incentive I have right now is really a grade.
Right.
And a grade is really a subjective, and what I mean by subjective, what day is it, what time is it, did you have a good year, did you get sick, did a family member, I mean, so many factors go into it, and then I just give a grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the student who's leaving higher education, it's really what have you done?
Right.
So we need to incentivize that, and I think one key feature of blockchain is you have incentives. You have trackable incentives, you can see what people have done. I think there's opportunity there. So that's my teaser.
Okay.
So when I come back, I'll say, well, this is what I've done. I need you to participate. But I think there is opportunity, and I'm trying to foster that. So when someone says, I'm interested in Bitcoin, Ethereum, I'm interested in blockchain, my answer is yes.
Okay.
And then we move forward.
And you
And I
find
think-
somewhere to.
Yes, and I
Yeah.
think it doesn't necessarily have to be me, but we have people in the right places to keep things moving along.
Okay. That's
So
fair.
I think there's great opportunity here. I think we see a lot of growth. We have a new president, we have a new provost, we have a new dean, we have a new department chair, and they seem to be very open to change. It's a different environment. So whatever you thought of Bowie, I think it's Bowie 2.0. Right?
Okay. Well, we'll take that. That means that there should be ways to, I guess, follow you or follow Bowie State or maybe their Entrepreneurship Academy online. Okay, let's start first. How do we follow you, or if someone wanted to get in contact with you, where could they find you? On Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, or?
Yeah, I'll be realistic. My Instagram is like my family, so if you want to see pictures of my kids, you're welcome to follow me on Instagram. It's amangle, but there's nothing to see there. Twitter is amangle. I'm trying to push more into LinkedIn.
Okay.
LinkedIn seems to be, I mean Twitter and LinkedIn right now. So Twitter I'm at amangle, but I try and keep my postings to a minimum. LinkedIn, I try and keep my postings to a minimum, but it's just Andrew Mangle. That's the AndrewMangle.
This is on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn, I do have a website, andrewmangle.com. You can see what I'm working on. I expect to post more, but I think, like for me, I hate posting before I have something tangible to show. Which I know I need to stop that. I need to start
because
giving
you can
teasers.
almost I was going to say,
Yeah,
you can just do little snippets.
Yes, I asked Samson what should I be doing. He says you need to start posting. He told me that 9 months ago.
Oh wow, okay.
So I want to acknowledge he told me I
Okay.
need to do it. Everyone's else you need to say more, so I will say more. So that'll be next time, like what have you done? You should
I'll
have
remember
a
to
solution
ask you that.
and more postings. My email address is just amangle@bowiestate.edu. My personal email address is amangle@gmail.com. I love my job, but I'm more responsive to my personal
Okay.
email.
Well, you heard that, so we'll say it again, amangle@gmail.com, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you, Professor Mangle.
Thank you.
Oh, and I guess I'll give my handle.
Yes.
So you can find me at Crowdy Advisors on Instagram or LinkedIn. Instagram or Twitter. And then Maureen, you're at MURAT on LinkedIn. And then I also have a Crowdy Advisors Facebook page if you want to like that. But anyways, thank you again, Professor Mangle, for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
We'll have to do something again, maybe later this year or early next year, so that we could see what progress you've
what's the
made.
deadline
Yes.
you're giving
Well,
me here?
I won't give you a deadline just
Okay.
yet, but just know that it's coming,
Okay.
or that the time is coming. And we appreciate you sharing a little bit about what you're working on, sharing what Bowie State is working on, and I think, granted there are plenty of HBCU schools in this area, but it's good to see that all the few of them are actually working on different blockchain and
Yeah, not like
tech.
I want to plug Howard, but
Yeah. They're there. Well, when you think of HBCU in this area, you can't leave Howard out.
Yeah.
But
yes, I want to
but-
say and.
But that doesn't mean that, whatever Bowie's doing isn't just as formidable and just as beneficial to the community, right? So thank you very much. And I actually have to get up and turn off the camera.
Okay, good.
It's only us here today.
Yeah, I'll say one more thing.
Oh, sure.
For introverts, if you want to start developing, there's a bunch of resources. You could just email me. One is a good one. It sounds weird. It's called Crypto Zombies.
Okay, I haven't heard of that one.
It's
okay.
Crypto Zombies, I think. Send me. I don't want to send you the wrong link, and then you go to a bad site, and then you get malware. So just email me. I'll send it to you. But it's gamified tutorial that introduces you to Solidity, which is the programming language behind smart contracts with ergo your tokens. But I think it opens your mind because you realize, this is what it really does. So when you go about reading it, what is a token? How could we use it? Well, this gets your hands on keyboards and walks you through it. Good news, it shows you the answer.
Okay,
so if you get stuck, show hint, show me the answers. You can copy and paste it. I tried it out ahead of time, so you can keep on moving forward. But it really helped me better understand what are the capabilities. And then Open Zeppelin is another one you'll learn about too.
Okay.
Which is just an open source directory of ERC20, ERC, 702. I'm going to get my tokens, I apologize. But just a way to get people moving along.
Right.
And you can create your own token.
Well, and that's cool too, because I think sometimes people just want to see, not necessarily know all the different technical aspects behind it, but just to see it in application also is helpful, even if you're not going to become, a Solidity developer or whatever.
Yes.
Just to see it in application.
It should be like Solidity for middle management.
Okay, right. So you just have this overview. You know what it does, you know what it looks like, and then
you can talk about it in meetings.
Right.
You can show something.
Right.
Create your own token. But it goes through by creating your own zombie, giving it some characteristics.
Okay.
So I think it's worth your time. I wouldn't. There's other things like there's a Space Doggos is another one.
Okay. So you got a few. So
I have a list of them. These are my teasers. Like before you go. So if you ended this before, you missed all the good stuff.
I know.
So stay to the end.
Maybe what I'll do is in our email to the attendees, we'll actually list some of those and give it to them so that they can check out some of those resources. But thank you again for joining us, and thank you out there for joining us as well. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your summer. All right, good night.
Extreme close up.
I know, because I have to stop it.